Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name's Elliot. You don't know me. Thank you for showing up. It's a really awesome turnout for Derek, for Derek's family, Anita and Nina, who are here. In this canyon that Derek dedicated so much of his life to and to this community. So it's really awesome to see the community here for him and for the family. And this memorial is a time for us to come together and share stories. It's really open forum. When I'm done up here, anyone's welcome to come up and please tell a story about Derek, favorite memory, or whatever you want. Please come up and say some words. I want to start with this foreword by Nina, Derek's daughter. It's in the new rifle guidebook here that Derek wrote and was nearly finished with before he passed. And so it's a really beautiful new guidebook. We're lucky to have a few advanced copies of it for this. And when you pick one of these up and read it, you'll feel Derek in it and his love for the canyon and his passion and his knowledge for the roots and the people here and the community, and it's just a really, really beautifully done book. So I'm going to start with a foreword by Nina, because to be honest, I wasn't totally sure what to say or how to start, except for sharing one of my stories about Derek. But when I read this foreword, I thought it just perfectly shows Derek's love and commitment and passion for this place and the people here. So, my dad first set foot in rifle in 1997. It was love at first sight and a love affair that continued for over 20 years. Despite immigrating to the U.S. in the late 1990s and not knowing a lick of English, Dad quickly amassed new friends with unparalleled ease. Of course, over the 20 years that my family has lived in Colorado, he learned English to a near native capacity, but it was undoubtedly his friendly demeanor, childlike enthusiasm, and unconditional encouragement towards his fellow climbers that landed him his unofficial title, Mayor of Rifle. And Derek was most certainly our mayor. He was always your biggest fan, regardless of whether you were projecting a 510 or a 514. To him, the most important thing was simply that you would try hard. As a kid, I remember thinking that Dad seemed like some kind of rock star because everyone seemed to know him no matter where we were, in Rifle, in Boulder, or even in the smallest French village of St. Anton and Noble Ball. There were times that we'd be on the way back home from the climbing gym in Boulder and we'd stop at the local grocery store for a few items. In what would for any other person be a 5-minute trip, with my dad it was inevitably prolonged to 25 minutes because he always ran into a climber he knew. People would ask him for updates about his newest route, he'd want the details about their latest send or current project, and then they'd launch into impassioned exchanges about beta in the middle of the cereal aisle. Among his many talents, my dad always had time for people, and if he didn't have the time, he made the time to chat with you and catch up, about all things climbing related, of course, but also about the trifles of everyday life. Dad's friends have joked over the years that he must have never slept because he was able to do so much more in 24 hours of the day than anyone else. Perhaps this abundant possession of time resulted from his insanely fast driving. To this day, I think I still might be the only person in the world who felt comfortable with his speed demon driving. But a childhood of commuting to and from Rifle every weekend will do that to a person. Funnily enough, the slowest I ever saw my dad willingly drive was upon entering the canyon. It was like flipping a switch. All 4 car windows rolled down and his head popped out the window, his mop of curly brown hair tousled by the breeze, trying to see who was already warming up the project wall. He was like a puppy, uncontrollably bouncing from left to right, craning his neck out the window, eager to greet everyone. A piece of Dad will forever live on in the very roots that make this beautiful canyon a climber's paradise. He lives on in roots like Kielbasa Run and Westerplatte, which pay homage to his Polish roots, and in the roots dedicated by name to his beloved family, effigy for the silent king in honor of his late father. The surname Krol means king in Polish. Pussy in the Sky with Almonds, a play on word of the iconic Beatles song named for our family cat. And Noble Wife, a dedication to his love for my mom, Anita, who bravely sacrificed so much for him that he could pursue his passion for climbing every weekend. And Nessun Dorma, who's right there, which he conceived and bolted in the summer of 2007 for me, 11 years old at the time, so that his daughter would have a suitable route to project during our visits to Rifle. Even though my dad is gone now, I find comfort in knowing that he left so much of himself behind here in Rifle. He is watching over all of us, and his spirit will continue to live on in the work that rifle climbers will do to preserve his legacy. To be kind and care for one another, and to care for the beautiful places on this earth that permit us to counter gravity and ascend to the heights. Thank you, Nia. And so this bench is a memorial bench that's going to go underneath Noble Wife in honor of Darek and Anita. So I'll start off with one of my favorite stories of Darek, something that I think exemplifies just his passion and what I got to see is in my early rifle climbing days in my early 20s. And I lived in Boulder at the time, and Darek picked me up at my house, and it was like 6:30 in the morning, and already, of course, really psyched, and we had a 3-day weekend planned, and we just had an awesome day of climbing. I think that was when I was lucky enough to belay him on his hardest ascent in the canyon, which was present tense into class act, and he climbed the entire cliff, entire canyon basically, and he fell off at the last bolt of class act, which is literally like 250 feet off the ground, but he was still smiling because he was so happy that he had sent present tense for the first time. And then we took a rest day, and on that rest day we went to this really suspect Mexican restaurant in Glenwood Springs. I think it's called like Hilbertito's or something. And the whole way on the rest day driving out of the canyon, he's like, this place is so good, you'll love it, it's so good. And we get there and it was like really not that good. Really, I was like, this is gonna rock me for tomorrow. But he was just overly stoked about it. And then after lunch, we go up to the South Canyon hot springs, the free little hot springs. And of course, the whole way up, he's like, these hot springs are awesome. We're gonna soak, get our muscles ready, we're gonna feel so good tomorrow. And we get to these hot springs, like super murky water. There's like a bunch of naked dudes in there that are not even close to climbers and don't even look safe to be near. And he's like, dude, this is a little grim, Darek. He's like, this is awesome, we're gonna feel so good tomorrow. And then we go stay at his buddy's house. We're gonna get showers, and we're just gonna feel so good. And we both then sleep on the floor at his buddy's house. So, but the whole time he just maintained this thrill and this stoke. And that's just one of my favorite memories of a trip that I got to spend with Darek. And, one of the hard things for me about him not being with us anymore is I just felt like we had so much more to do together, and so many more days in this canyon, and helping him with the rendezvous, and I just felt like we had more work to do together. And I'll always miss him in the canyon. This year it'll never be the same without him driving up in the Saab and just being like, did you send? And then driving away. Usually a little too fast. But I think this weekend, and obviously this is we're never gonna forget him, and his spirit is with us here in the canyon. And we always feel him, and we can feel his energy, and we'll carry it forward for him. So, thank you. And it's open now for anyone else.
Okay, I'm used to the mics. So, as many of you probably know, I was good friends with Darek and worked with him closely in the coalition. And we also were climbing partners here and there. And in the spirit of Nina's forward to the guidebook regarding his fast driving. So one day I was actually coming back from this, probably about 10 years ago, at least, maybe 12 years ago. I was coming back from the rendezvous that we had that year, and it was getting dark, and I'm driving back on a windy road, and as some of you may know, that I'm kind of known for my own fast driving, and I'm driving along, and all of a sudden I'm going around this corner, and it's a straightaway, and this guy comes up from behind me, and he just flies by me like I'm standing still. And I'm like, nobody drives faster than me in America. I'm like, I got home, I told my wife, I go, this guy passed me going 1,000,000 miles an hour. I don't know who it was, but I'm willing to bet that he's not from America. Sure enough, I come back, and a few days later, I'm partnering with him to climb, and he goes, "So Lee, you're a pretty fast driver." It's like, that was you? I figured. So that's one short story. Another one is that this is what it's like to climb with Darek during the day, typically. You have to plan your day a little differently than you normally would. So one of the things that this is a typical climbing day. Darek would be like, "Oh yeah, let's go climbing, we'll do all these routes. I'm eating at 8 o'clock in the morning." And okay. I show up at 8 o'clock in the morning, where's Darek? "Oh, I don't know, he's bolting a route up the canyon." "Darek, I thought we're meeting for climbing." "Oh, it's just been 20 minutes. Hour and a half later." "Darek, we need to go climbing." Okay, we start climbing. A few hours later. "Lee, I gotta take a break. There's a few bolts that need to be replaced. Up the canyon is a loose block. Oh, take me a half hour." So that's pretty much what it's like climbing with him. And on a somber note, my last memory of Darek was last fall. I was trying to repeat a route here that I've done many times, and I've had back surgery about 5 years ago, and I've been trying to repeat it. And I got pretty close last fall, and he was belaying me, and he was so supportive of me and told me that, "Let's get together this spring, and we'll work on the route, and we'll get you through it." And that was the last time I saw him, and it's been really hard for me. I miss him terribly. So, and my respect to the family, I commiserate. It's hard to have such an incredible human being be not here anymore. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
My name's Steve Hobbs. I met Darek about 20 years ago, probably similar to how most of you met Darek through climbing. I was a very young climber, not necessarily young, but young in climbing, and Darek stood out as instantly as a mega star. I didn't really get to know him for some time because he was so up there, and I was a newbie, and it wasn't until Darek really started to notice me and encourage me and even celebrate my victories on much lower climbs, and that it sort of it stood out to me was how amazing he was at befriending anybody, and he really changed the way I looked at people that are as accomplished and as Darek are climbing, and who throw themselves at it with wild abandon, but yet are still incredibly kind and generous and warm and welcoming. And that's a lesson that I've taken to today, that you can, climbing doesn't have to be a purely hedonistic, self-serving pursuit, that you can, like Derek, be a community builder and warm and friendly and welcoming to everybody. Stories to tell, I mean, there's so many. Another one that stands out was at a rendezvous party like last night, several years ago. I was just Derek's gopher, helping out move tables and pick up trash and do whatever he needed help with. And the after party involved Derek and I and Dave Pegg and Maury and maybe one or two others. And it wasn't smooth. We had a car crash right out of the canyon. Somebody ended up in a ditch without a tire, and then we got to Dave's house, -1 keg from out of Avery that flew out the back of a truck, and there's a perfect keg-sized hole in the back of the fabric tailgate, and we captured a lot of it on video. If you happen to have a bootleg copy of the Try Hard video, watch it for a little past what you think is the ending, and you might catch some of our wonderful, deep philosophy in Dave's hot tub at somewhere around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. But everything that we did, everything you did with Derek was fun. Like every wrong turn, it was just part of the adventure, and Derek made everything fun. And I enjoyed every minute with Derek. He was first someone that I just looked up to as a megastar, and then he was a friend, and he will be an inspiration for me forever for everything that for his approach to not just to climbing, but to community and friendship and to place. It's a gift that he's given to all of us. Thank you.
One fun fact while we're waiting for Lynn Hill to come up is Derek, I think, did every 512 in this canyon, which I heard which is pretty amazing because there's like 200 of them or something. Yeah. Lynn.
So I don't really have any specific stories to tell because, as Nina beautifully wrote, most of my interactions with Derek was just like seeing him at the gym or seeing him in various places, the New River Gorge here. I know about his fast driving and all that crazy stuff. And part of it was his upbringing in Poland, I think. Very tough people, and he told me a lot of stories about how he learned to climb and all the different things that he had to do. Like, you weren't allowed to just go and climb. You had to go through all these schools and things. But obviously, Derek was a very special person. All of us here who knew him really miss him. Radiant, smiling, supportive, energetic. He did so much for this community. So just wanted to say I'm really grateful, and thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name's Steven. I host a climbing podcast, the Nugget Climbing Podcast, and I had the very special honor of interviewing Derek last November, right before Thanksgiving. It was about a month before he died. And we sat in the Krol's living room for hours and hours and drank wine. And Derek told me all about his life, and told a lot of stories about his early life in climbing and some of his philosophies. And it was one of my favorite conversations I've ever had. And it's all the more special now. Nina asked me if I would play a short clip from that conversation. And it relates to the plaque that is going to be installed on this bench. The plaque's not ready yet. This is what it's going to look like. This is just a laminated piece of paper, and I will read it for you guys, and then I'll play the clip, and that'll provide some context for a quote on the plaque. It says, "In memory of Derek Krol, 1963 to 2020, husband, father, climber, author, and mayor of these beloved limestone cliffs of Rifle, Colorado. And then there's a quote in Polish that I can't read. And the English translation roughly is, "The bowstring must remain taut at all times." And I'm going to play a clip that'll explain what that means.
Speaking of the conquests of the useless, you know, that I think this is the best definition of like why you want to climb, why you're so psyched. The coolest thing that climbing and sport activities create in general, I think, is something that I called a long time ago for myself, and I was spreading that kind of like notion with my friends, is the what I would call it. Actually, I mean, I know what I call it, but it would be something like let's call it concept of the arrow on the bow.
Okay.
So think of your climbing like you have a bow and an arrow in your hands, and that bow is always stretched, and arrow is ready to go. You know, and you may stretch it even harder. You know, then the arrow will go further, right? And this is the aspect of climbing I like the most. And I would stress it with anybody who gets into climbing, or, you know, to have that tension in you all the time. So no matter where you are, what you do, if you find the tension of that bow in you, your life is probably well spent. That means that you're after something, that you actually pay attention to what you do. Because if you want to be a successful climber, you are going to eat differently. You're going to have a different sleeping pattern. You're going to have a resting pattern. You will not do certain things to not jeopardize your scent, right? You will train, so you will train not to look great. You will train to keep that arrow, you know, pulled. So, you know, I'm not sure if this is like easy to feel it in yourself, but this is the tension, you know, I feel in me, you know, for those 40 years. Like this is beautiful. This is giving me sense of living. I don't have to, you know, I'm not the strongest climber in the world, you know, of course, and you know, I just like climbing. You know, it doesn't matter if it's hard or not. But that tension makes me always look somewhere else. And you know, sometimes I feel like the tension is like, I let it go. You know, I eat crap. I gain pounds. This is not good. This is not what I want. So, you know, you create a life pattern, a life path that kind of, you know, always keeps you in check, right? Like you just watch yourself. You don't do stupid things. And because you always have a sense of a purpose, right?
You're always ready to let that arrow fly.
Yeah. Be ready.
Yeah.
You know, like, even if you think I'm out of shape, but be ready for something. You know, like don't just sit and do nothing. don't have it like you should never be in a situation when you don't know what to do. Like I don't know what to do with my life. This is actually like there's bows, you know, not stretch. You just let it to rest in the like, neutral position. So whatever you do, it doesn't have to be climbing, but climbing is just a perfect way to actually have life that is fulfilling, that is happy, because you feel it in you that, you know, and you don't have to name it the way I named it, but I think that, you know, it's something that everybody can discover. Like, this is actually really keeping me, you know, like I'm keeping everything controlled in my hand. And a lot of people actually like to have their life under control. And again, like, it doesn't have to be climbing, it could be anything. Again, something useless, but something that will make you to create that tension.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Try to hold it together. I think I might be in a slightly different position than a lot of Derek's closer, older friends. I moved to Boulder a few years ago, and I feel like I've packed in a mini lifetime worth of experiences with Derek in a really short time, because a lot of the experiences and memories I'm hearing about are things I've done with Derek. I've been to Gilbertitos, and it's not that bad. I've also been to the janky, swampy hot springs, and it's, yeah, there's a bunch of naked dudes there. That was my experience too. I think he had a zest for life, and everything was amazing, and he just found the twinkle in everything. Everything was special to him, and he wanted to include people in his little special bubble, and he did that for me. I never really felt like I had a community or like a friendship like I had with him, and I miss him. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say. He was a special person to me, and since I've become friends with a lot of his friends, his family, I love his family dearly, and yeah, I just wish I had more time with him, and I'm happy that we can all appreciate what he's given to this community, this world, and we need more people like him. I think one thing I'm thinking of as he's speaking is just how Derek cultivated this community just better than anyone I've ever met in my life. And I think there's so many of us here, and people know that when you spend time in Rifle, it's like some of the strongest climbers you'll ever meet that are also the most approachable and friendly human beings. And I think Derek was really instrumental in cultivating this super welcoming community when we're in between our projects that we've been working on for days or weeks or months or years. There's just this welcoming vibe here that I think a lot of that we owe to Derek. So, Marco?
Sorry, I was like, didn't want to come up here because I was like, I'm just gonna cry, which I don't want to do. But I just feel like it's not appropriate not to come up here when this is a place that's been so special to me in my climbing and my life. And I feel like we all have called Derek, the mayor of Rifle, but I think that you don't realize how much of a space he filled until, he's not here. And I think it's beautiful to see so many people here, I think, filling that, and as someone put it, kind of carrying his energy forward. But he's definitely missed. I've only been in the canyon a few times this year, and it doesn't feel the same. And I think everybody who knew Derek and knew Rifle can probably relate to that. Just thinking back on, I guess, the first few times, it's just too close to my mouth, maybe, meeting Derek, it was always just like I'd see him in the gym at Movement in Boulder, or I'd see him here, and at first I didn't know who he was before I came to Rifle a lot, and I was young, but it was just like this guy who was always so friendly and always asking questions, and we would have these short chats that ended up not being very short because he could be very chatty and I also could be very chatty, so he would be like definitely take into our sessions at the gym, but I mean, that's not really what matters when it comes down to it with climbing. It's about the community and about the connections that we make. And I just remember he always felt, I think he makes everyone feel special in a sense, everyone feel important. And I think that, of course, you can only speak for yourself, but I think that many people felt that way. And nothing about it was it was really, he genuinely, I think, cared about these people that had a similar passion to himself. And I have a lot of memories and stories about Darek in the canyon or at the gym, but one thing that always stands out to me is that, I don't know how many years ago it was, when I was about 18 years old, I'd spent a lot of the summer here projecting different routes, and I remember I had a project, and it came down to, I'd spent most of my summer just climbing outside rather than training for the competitions that I was going to and totally unprepared for, because I wanted to be here with the people in the canyon doing, anyway, I'm sorry. I remember it was like the end of the summer, and I was about to move actually abroad for a year or over a year. I didn't know at that point, but I hadn't sent my project, and I was really close, and I knew I'd sacrificed a lot because I hadn't been training for what I should have been training for. But I had just spent the whole summer here, and I remember it was my last day here, and I remember I didn't send, and I don't like crying in public, and I remember on the edge of the car in the Wicked Cave, and I was crying my eyes out because it was like my melodramatic teenage heart was like, my life was climbing at that point, I was young and I was immature, and I remember Darek saw me in the parking lot, and he came up, and I remember, like, no matter how ridiculous it was, me just like crying over my project, he like totally understood, and I remember it was just like, he would make people feel seen, I think, and whether it was, I was supposed to leave for France in like several days, and I was totally pushing it to the end of the line, and whether it was the fact that maybe he had a very different concept of time than most people, or just the fact that he could do a lot in a small amount of time. I remember he was like, it's fine, you can still do it before you go. I was like, I literally leave in 3 days. And I remember he volunteered my dad to bring me up for a day trip, which my dad was probably like, oh my God, not again. But I remember he was just so encouraging. He was like, just come up one more time. All you need is 1 day. Just do a warm up. You'll get on it and you'll send it. And I remember I didn't believe that at that point, but he definitely believed that. And that's what I ended up doing. And so I think whenever I'm in the Wicked Cave, whenever I'm in Rifle in general, I think of Darek, but I think especially the Wicked Cave. So I think it just goes to show how I think Darek supported everyone in whatever it was they were doing. It didn't matter what you were climbing on or what you were passionate about, but I think he just wanted everybody to be their best self. So, yeah, we'll miss you, Darek.
That's Ellie. My name's Brent. I'm really bad at public speaking as well, so bear with me. To what Elliot was saying a minute ago, Rifle does give off this, if you've never been here, this machismo vibe that is intimidating if you're not accustomed to it. And when I rolled into the canyon last season, I just remember getting interesting dirty looks, or what I perceived as dirty looks, from like buff, gruff dudes walking down the road. Like maybe I was driving a little too fast or a little too slow or right in the middle of the road. But I ended up in front of the anti-fill wall and parked next to a black Saab, and we were pretty close, but I was hoping it would be suitable. This was all during COVID, so I showed up in the canyon with a mask on and was kind of just floating around looking for any familiar face. And when I came back to my vehicle, there was just this guy bent over in the back of his Saab, like scrummaging through his car, totally blocking me and keeping me from getting into my vehicle and leaving to go down the road. And so as I politely just stood there and waited, literally like 2.5 or 3 minutes of time went by until he just kind of like stopped and looked back and saw me, and he was like,
oh shit, are you trying to get in the car? Oh my god. And then from there on, a conversation ensued of where's the best place to camp, just any type of beta for rifle. And it turns out I ran into the man with all the beta for rifle. He hooked me up with friends, some of you I probably met last year and know. The campsite Derek got me was close to where he was staying, and I ended up staying there for the entire duration. And try and wrap this up, but the one of the greatest memories I have with him was one of the most miserable nights I had in rifle. It was his last night in the canyon, and he propped his tent down next to me and my tent, and he was foot stomping his X-Ped mattress, which is like a 3 or 4 inch thick mat, and super comfy. I have the same mattress, and we were both kind of just laying down to go to bed, and when I got in my tent, I noticed this little clear looking bubble in one of my seams, and so, like a dumbass, I poked it, and my mat popped at like 11:30 at night. So Derek's like, here's this hissing sound, and me just like say the F word real loud. He's like, oh shit, what's going on? I'm like, I just popped my mat. And he's like, oh man, do you need anything? Do you have patches? And I'm like, no, I have patches. I'll get to it. Thanks. You gotta send them tomorrow. Don't let me hold you up. So, not 2 minutes later, I'm frantically like panicking because I want to send tomorrow too. Derek is just snoring, just the deepest sleep, where I'm so angry. I'm also just laughing so hard internally. And for the next hour and a half, I fought this giant hole, leaking air mattress hole, with duct tape and crappy sealant and all these things, just trying to stay quiet and keep everyone from waking up. All the while, Derek just farting up a storm right next to me. And I couldn't help but just be pissed and like hating life and super tired, a little drunk, mad at the situation. And then just hear Derek tear ass behind me was one of my favorite moments. He does not know that. Ultimately, Derek did send that day. He also sent the last of his 512s in the canyon, which was a climb that he bolted for. You all might know who I'm speaking of, but in the Nostril Cave, the Master P routes. Anyway, I'm doing a bad job of describing how Derek did it, but that was Derek's final route in the canyon, in memorial for his late friend, Dave Penn. So, I appreciate y'all letting me get up here and say a few words, but yeah, we will greatly miss you, Derek, and yeah, thanks for everything.
Hi, my name is Isabel, and I just wanted to say that for 5 or 6 years, Derek always said, we must bring your climbing wall to the rendezvous, and like we have to have you do a performance. And we talked about it so many times, and my climbing wall was a big pain in the ass because it was put together with scaffolding, and it took about 6 to 8 hours to set up. And then in 2019, I bought this school bus, put the climbing wall on it, and Derek was like, finally we can bring your climbing wall to the rendezvous. And we were like really excited about it. And then COVID happened, and then he was gone. But he was fucking there yesterday, because for those of you who were there, at the very end of the performance, this wind came up and this like rain started falling, and it was so eerie, and he was there. He was a force, and he still is a force. And I think that's what we have to remember when we lose loved ones. And miss Dave Pegg so much also, is that they're in the air, they're in the leaves, they're on the rock, they're in this canyon, and life continues because we're gonna keep losing people, and we have lost so many. And I think ultimately what I want to believe is that they're not gone. Their body's gone, but they're not gone. So Derek continues to be a force. That's how I feel. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bogdan. I was inspired by her, so I had to step in. Because some people are gifted from above, and I think Darek was one of those people. So I know Darek for, let's say, 40 years. But the funny thing is that we only have few pictures we were together for little times. That was in Poland 40 years ago. And I tell you about the guy. I mean, I was great climber, he was great climber, but he has something I didn't have. He gathered around himself young guys who had no hope, living in communist country, and he made this club up Corona, right? And those guys went doing stuff. They were, great days. Nobody was looking for anything, and there were guys motivated to do it. So that's how Darek was. So that's one picture. Then 20 years goes, I climb here, live in America, have great time, and then we got married, decided to move maybe Colorado, and then I met Darek again, just out of blue. I said, come in, this is place, he was this guy with the power to convince you, so I moved here. Happens that I got 2 kids, and I couldn't keep up with him, because when you have 2 little kids, and wife who's a doctor, forget climbing. So we spent some time together, but he taught me one lesson which, I don't know, I think it's him, I don't know if it's true. He was saying, when my baby was small, I will wake up, set up alarm, so I help my wife. So when she breastfeeding, she can have some rest. I was like, I never thought about this. To set yourself up, wake up at night so the wife can have few hours rest. I was so selfish, I couldn't do that. That's a big thing when you start thinking being a father. And then when 20 years ago, and I came to Rifle just out of blue, and there's Darek. He said, come in. So we climbed together for a day. And of course, he was working on his project, which was, I don't know the names, I know the routes. It was supposed to be 14 if you completed to the top, or 13. It was right at the project wall, is it right? Yeah. So I was there, guys were delaying, I was taking pictures, and the guy had a drive, and this word he said, he yelled once in a while, Sparta. It says what he means. He was giving everything he had to do what he wanted to do. And of course, end of the story was it was dark, night, and he was still bolting something, and I was driving with him back home. So I got home way after 1 a.m. But I always told people he had incredible wife, because I wasn't being in his position. I was married too for a long time, and my wife would say, hey, you decide what you want. So there's the lady here, and that's all I have. And again, I say he was a gift, and I don't see him losing, because he was a gift, give, you take, and you return, and he's still there. Thank you.
I'm Rob Eisen. I've known Darek for a long time, over the years, and I want to reemphasize what a gift Darek is. He's the most magnanimous, generous person I've ever climbed with, and perhaps I've ever met. And I wanted to share with the family my last conversation with Darek just a couple weeks before his passing. When I saw him at the gym, of course, and he was ecstatic about having his family back for the holidays, about having his daughter back. I've never seen him filled with so much joy, and that's saying something, because we've seen Darek with so much joy for so many years, so many times. But he was ecstatic. And we talk about how much he gives us and how much enthusiasm for climbing, but there was an enthusiasm for life that is unparalleled amongst people I've known. Since his passing, he continues to give us this gift. Not a day goes by that I don't think in my own life, not how can I be a better climber, because he inspired that for all of us, right? But how can I be a better person? How can I be a better father? How can I be a better husband? He continues to give us this gift. Not a day goes by that I don't think about Derek and what he means to me and to us and how to be a better person. I love Derek. I miss him. We all miss him.
Anyone else? Mark?
I'm not a local here, although I've climbed here a lot in the last few years. But Derek, one of my first times here, he saw that I was sort of wandering around, and he goes, "Hey, what's your name? Here, what are you doing? You know, what do you want to climb?" And sort of lined me out with some partners and gave me some tips and stuff. I'm trying to learn how to speak Spanish, and so he would talk to me in Spanish, and we would try to figure that kind of stuff out. It was sort of like, after that he knew me, I helped out with one of the rendezvous and stuff. And after that, when I would come here, you know, after not being here for a couple years, he'd be, "Mark, we're here, what's up?" You know, ask me all this stuff. And I was in Baja, and I got a text, and it said, "Did you hear about Derek?" And I just, you know, you don't need to know. And I just walked out to the beach, and I sat there, and I just thought of Derek. You know, he was all psyched. He wanted me to do one of these 513s over here. And, "Yeah, you can do it." And he's telling me all the moves and stuff. And I just, I don't know, he was that guy. He was that guy. He was always there for you. It's just, I mean, I've had a lot of friends pass and stuff, but even now, you know, certainly coming back here, the first thing I thought about was Derek. Oh man, I'm not going to see Derek. I'm not going to see his smiling face. And definitely, it's right, he's still here, and he's still, when we talk about him, he'll be here. You know, that's keeping that memory alive, and he'll be here forever. It'll be really good, because he has affected all of us so much. Yeah, so, you know, can I just do one thing? This might be weird. So I've had, you know, really, really close friends who've died and things, and so we got together and we were having, you know, camping at his favorite climbing area, and we're all drinking and stuff. It's a beautiful starry night, and we're in one of the areas. The guy's name was John Bola, and so we're sort of all ready to go to bed. We've told all the stories and all that, and so we said, okay, let's do this. Let's have a John Bolan chant. And if you guys want to do this, that's fine. But if you don't, that's not do it. So we just sort of went, Bolan, 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 louder and louder and louder until it was a crescendo, where we're just screaming his name and then stop. And it just, I don't know, it called him here, it plastered him to the walls. I don't know, does that sound like a good thing?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we'll just go, you know, we'll go like this, and then I'll go like that, eventually, just like, go nuts, you know, so Derek, 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 Derek.
Anyone else?
Hey, my name's Danny. Thank you all for creating this space here. This is awesome to hear everyone's stories. Super special. Just like you all are saying, Derek's kind of welcomed everyone into the canyon, myself included. My best friend and I, Zach, came here a bunch of times, and Derek, continued to bring us in. We kind of joked around. He looked kind of like us, like an older European version of us. So we basically called him Dad. So every time we'd see him, we'd be like, Dad, Dad. He'd be like, Sons, hey, sons. So we had this unofficial connection, and he felt like family, to all of you and to us. And so that was pretty amazing. He definitely took us under his wing in a lot of ways, spraying us down as always, finding the secret under the radar climbs that might fit our climbing level. He got me the gig DJing in the Rendezvous a few years ago, which we've been able to grow, so that's super amazing. And I feel like when we bring the music, when we dance, that's like channeling the inner Derek vibe for the late night party, because he'd always be there with us. So pretty amazing for that. And kind of like Elliot was saying, there's so much more I feel like there was to do with him. We talked about getting bike racks in the canyon and getting recycling in the canyon and bolting more routes. I wanted him to teach me how to bolt. He may not have known that, but I was going to ask him. So all those things, we can continue to harness the inner Derek motivation and continue on and in his name and beyond. So we're going to miss you, Dad. We love you.
Yeah, with that, we had a little gathering with the Rifle Climbers Coalition this morning. Talked about with some of the community just what the coalition does, and there was a lot of talk about Derek and it's how and what Lee shared earlier with how he'd be bolting, and he was such a steward of this canyon and did so much work to re-bolt and to take care of these climbs and to keep them safe for all of us. And I'd ask you, as we feel there's a void with him being gone, and there's a void in the canyon work with what he was able to do was truly incredible with how he climbed, but also put in true actual work into this place. So if you're interested in helping fill that void, you can contact us at the Climbers Coalition and try to get involved and work with Mike Schneider to learn how to re-bolt. And I know that this Rendezvous weekend, if only Derek could have seen it, because he'd have been so proud of this one and the turnout and the growth of this event and how it's just so positive for the canyon. So if you're interested in helping take over some of the role that Derek did in this canyon, reach out to the Climbers Coalition. Yeah, we'll need help. And if no one else is wanting to share, I think we'll take a few strong rifle climber individuals to help carry this bench up to Noble Way. Is that the plan, Melissa?
We can do it later.
Okay. Should we carry it up now?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah?
Let's do it now.
Kind of a procession thing?
Yeah.
All right. Who's not too tired from yesterday? This looks very heavy, so we're gonna need a few people.
I lifted it.
It's so beautiful.
I have to do some landscaping to flatten out. Nice job, Pablo. Thanks.
Yeah.
No metal fasteners, and the iron, you gotta bolt the metal register.